Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Michelle Mather, and I'm the founder of the Green Marketing Academy. Welcome to our next LinkedIn Live Spotlight series, where we showcase change makers and leaders who are helping to inspire both climate activism and more sustainable and ethical marketing practices. Joining us today, we have Alycia Drube, founder of the Positive Impact Event Consulting. Welcome, Alycia, and I'll let you kick us off by just doing a quick intro of yourself.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. I'm so excited to have been invited. I'm Alycia Drube. I founded Positive Impact Event Consulting this year to help my friends and peers in the events industry to integrate sustainability into their event businesses so that they can feel ready to make every event that they work on more sustainable.
Awesome. And we haven't talked, at least on this platform, in a while about sustainable events. And I know it's heavy conference and trade show season right now and all the things. And it's even the time of year where people are starting to plan spring events and even all the events in 2025. So let's start here. Tell us your why. Why do you do this work? How did you get into it?
Yeah, well, you touched on it already. Events are a big impact in a small amount of time, lots of people in one place. And so once I started working full time in events, it started getting to me pretty quick, looking around and seeing the tear down at the end, the piles of trash, seeing all the types, different swag and things going on, the signage. And my poor little Captain Planet brain started getting worked up right away. So I ended up looking into okay, who's doing a great job at this? How can I work with them? What's the situation? Once I started in the industry, I was like, even in Seattle, where I'm based, this is really minimal on people's to-do lists and on people's minds. Like there's a lot of other things that rank higher. And so I decided to just self-educate. So I went in for a program called that's made by the Events Industry Council, which is an international body for event professionals. They designed it and executed this online program during the pandemic called Sustainable Event Professional Certification. So I got certified last year, and just for my own knowledge of okay, from the perspective of events, how can we be doing better? What should we be focused on? All these really hard questions that I get right away. And so that was just for my own knowledge. And once I had it, I was like, okay, from a social responsibility standpoint, I feel like now that I have the knowledge, I should start to share it. I want to help like I said, my friends, my neighbors, the people I see at association meetings. And so that's when I started at the beginning of this year developing how can I spread this information. And I started the consultancy to be able to host workshops, work one-on-one. And I realized that my own expertise with owning businesses and running small business enterprises is in the business practice side. How can we look at this from an internal standard so that by the time your clients are asking, by the time you've got Microsoft knocking on your door and demanding reports in addition to your normal work, how can you be ready? And so that's why I'm focusing on business practices, internal procedures, so that everyone can get this automations going, get the muscle memory started before you get a big client who's breathing down your neck, asking hard questions. And so, yeah, my why is all about the intersection of my own knowledge and my community and what I'm seeing is missing. And it's just such a hard topic. And events are so impactful, but then as soon as they're done, they're gone, they're invisible. So it's this ethereal world to try to impact.
I love that approach. And oftentimes I've seen at events that the event planning process begins, it goes on, and then making it sustainable or reducing waste is a secondary or sometimes even an afterthought. So I love that approach of, infusing it in all aspects of your business. So it's just part of what you do rather than making it a special case for, let's say, Earth Month or, all the times of the year where people suddenly come out of the woodwork with sustainability initiatives. So great.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say, and you touched on this a bit, but what is the mission and the vision of Positive Impact Event Consulting?
My mission is to get out there and get more people understanding what sustainability within events means. And this is like, you and I are a great intersection because events are one of the most impactful forms of marketing that you can do.
Mhm.
Everyone is craving the human experience now more than ever. And so bringing people out and exposing them to your business through this form of marketing is really impactful in an emotional way, but also in an environmental and social way. And so if I can get more people feeling like it's attainable to include that routinely in their event procedures and in the process that they run their business, then my vision in the future is that it's an automated part of the community, and you're not having to single-handedly educate your vendors. Event planners are not feeling like the pressure is exclusively on them to be leading the charge on this, and that we're all, rising tides raise all ships, and we all have this collective ability to do better, even if it's only a little bit at a time, especially since our industry, while being invisible, we create so much of a forward trend. We are representative as leaders from this invisible, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, but we are creating the schedules, we are creating the environments, we are generating all of this experiential influence. And so if we are doing better, if we are moving the tide toward things being more automatic and people being less surprised by sustainable, being more surprised when there's not a trash sorting option, or there's not a better vegan food option, or whatever the focus is for any individual. And that's what I'd like to see. I personally am very waste focused, but some people are more animal focused or more social impact or economical focused. So if whoever is at your event can feel whatever their personal interest is being satisfied regardless, then we've all done a great job. And that's the long future that we're trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually attended the 1% for the Planet Global Summit last week.
I was so jealous.
It's always a great event, and they do a lot in the means of encouraging bringing our own cups. But one thing we were talking about with some of their event coordinators is you can't please everyone either. There's always going to be a gap in what dietary preferences are chosen. So it is a tricky balance there, but as long as we're continuing to refine and improve each event, and it's really important to collect that feedback from our participants and attendees, that's the way that we can keep moving forward.
For sure.
Alycia, oh yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it is a matter of your audience as well. The 1%, that is a keen audience who want to see the best. They want to be representing the future. And they presumably, all of your fellow attendees had high expectations. And it's a really interesting balance about knowing what people's expectations are. And I think it's very, very important as well to be educating. Yes. If you're not letting your attendees know what you're doing, then they're probably going to criticize you whether you've done it or not. So it's about, we were not able to succeed at this for this reason. We're aiming toward this goal, but we didn't make it this year. Sharing all of that, sharing the efforts that you've made, even if they weren't perfectly successful, can really counterbalance some of that collection of feedback that can be really, disheartening when it's quite hard to be pulling the strings with so many vendors in such an environment, as events are just, huge machines.
Yes, definitely. And I know that skewed my level of expectations going to an event space that is not all focused on sustainability, or the audience isn't looking for those things, which I'll just quickly mention. I think when we first met, I got into sustainable marketing and the focus on that because of going to so many corporate trade shows and just envisioning the piles of waste that collect from these events. I mean, think about how many events are going on even right now in every city and state and country. It's just, but anyways, I digress. Speaking of goals, which of the UN Sustainable Development Goals are you focused on primarily? And if you could provide a little explanation behind each one or collectively, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so safe to assume that this audience knows that the UN Sustainable Development Goals were created as a framework to be able to look at sustainable progress and set goals in particular areas. With my business, UN Sustainable Development Goals are an amazing tool that I actually use for education. So rather than focusing on any individual goal within my business, I guess we could say it's goal number 17, which is partnership for the goals. I am trying to spread the word out among event professionals, especially who have not probably had the bandwidth within their small business to learn a lot about the UN SDGs and to have a big perspective on what they care about. And the sort of two avenues that I look at the SDGs through is one, just exposure for my clientele, giving them an idea of what they are. And I break it down into sort of the 4 categories that we can look at it from the event perspective, which is obviously environmental. There's several, land and water, air quality, all those different things. So sustainability for environment. And then I look at social and community sustainability. So that's things like DEI, accessibility, basic, human welfare issues when it comes to what kind of companies you're buying from, those sorts of things. Individual health and well-being, which is the health of your attendees in particular, or your staff, which is going to be a lot of the additional, safe environments, enough pay, those sorts of things. Some of these overlap. And then economic, which is buying from minority-owned businesses, supporting businesses who have practices that you endorse, trying to spend your money locally, all those sorts of things. And by splitting it up into those 4 categories, it gives my event pros a way to look at what's going on and say, okay, maybe we're not able to perfectly reduce waste or get rid of animal products in our menu, but what we can do is pay fair wages to a minority-owned, local-owned business. What we can do is publicize and educate our attendees and the company who's our end client on best practices, or how to select better flowers next year, or how to get more rentals instead of buying and trashing. So it's by having those 4 categories to work from, it gives an opportunity to kind of pick and choose. Once you run out of options in one, you can kind of go and take some from another area to keep doing better. And then the other side that I use the SDGs for is working with my clients to say, what are your personal interests? What do you have the energy to do better for? Because that's where we're going to start. As a business, with your own priorities, as you learn how to educate your vendors and how to do this on your own, I want you to be doing the thing that you care about so you have the energy. I'm a big anti-plastic person. In my personal life, I have gone incredibly low package and plastic on all of my personal care. My kitchen, my shopping habits are all very focused on getting rid of plastic and packaging. And so that's the thing that I focus on in my business as well. I don't want to be buying off Amazon where everything's triple wrapped in little plastic baggies. And I don't want to be, I want to buy a refillable and all that sort of deal. So I want that for my clients as well. If you love to go kayaking in the local watershed, maybe we focus on water conservation as one of your key business focuses for your sustainability. You can communicate that to your clients. They can get an appreciation for what you care about. You can communicate that with your vendors. This is my number 1 priority. And then you're feeling good. You've got the energy. And as you go along, you get that habit and you get that skill, and then you can build from there. And same thing when you're approaching your clients, you can say, what, if you're a nonprofit or you're a corporation, what's your number 1 interest from these UN sustainability goals? We can make that our first level consideration and then rank from there so that you have something achievable you can attain first. and then keep working. Because if we try to do 100% on all 16, we're really going to struggle. And I don't want any more overwhelm when it comes to sustainability in events. Everyone instantly goes overwhelm mode when they think about it because, oh, well, if I can't do this, then what about that? And if I make this alternative choice, how is that going to spiral into, instead we're going to bring in trucks. And if those trucks aren't as good, what about the traffic? And what about supporting the local business? But they use bad practices on this. And, it's keep going down, down, down. So instead, let's prioritize one thing at a time. Pick the thing you personally care about, and you'll do better because of your personal interest and because you'll have the energy. So that's how I split up the sustainability goals, is your personal interest and how to look at the framework of the industry. Because with that, they serve their purpose really well of being broken down into digestible, usable parts instead of sustainability, which, how many of us had not known to consider economic inclusion as a sustainable goal that makes our planet better and makes the human race more capable of prospering. So it's a lot of ways that I use it. And I just think it's such a great tool.
Yeah, thank you for touching specifically on the energy that marketing and event planning takes.
Yep.
One of the things that I always teach our members and companies that I've worked with is you have to keep your energy sustainable as a marketing, as an event professional, because there's, as you touched on, there's so much that we can be doing, but we need to be lit up and passionate about. And like you said, you can't, even though we are in this sustainability world, probably likely to be passionate about all of the different SDGs, but focusing on one or two, I really like to, encourage people to start there. So again, so aligned on that. And thank you for taking a deeper dive into that, because it's just something I like to touch on frequently.
Well, and if you're not considering yourself and your own personal energy and your business and what your business can withstand as part of what needs to be sustained, you're going to burn yourself out as well. And if my business fails because I didn't have the energy to do what I was trying to do, then that was an obviously unsustainable choice from the dictionary definition of being able to persist. And it was all overkill, don't burn yourself out over this, because it's more important you do well for the long term than you do amazing, make a big impact for 1 week and then stop keeping that positive impact.
Yeah. Sustainability starts with you. That's what I always say.
That's right.
All right. We could talk about this for hours, but we'll keep going. So what do you feel like is the greatest impact that your personal role can make when it comes to encouraging greener marketing practices? Of course, this is more surrounded by events, but we'd love to hear your response on this.
Yeah, I almost wore my Events Drive Business t-shirt from the Northwest Event Show, because whether it's your internal meetings or nonprofit fundraisers or your actual marketing events and exposure to your clientele, or thank you events for your clientele, events are a marketing experience. So there's complete overlap there. And my greatest impact for my business and my personal efforts, I really just want my community of my industry, which is events, to feel like sustainability is a topic that's accessible and attainable, as opposed to a hot coal that no one wants to hold, because it's a lot and people get very overwhelmed. But if we all had the feeling that we could at least a little bit make a positive impact, the events industry as a whole would be doing leaps and bounds better than it is. And I think it's just a really slippery slope to cynicism within our industry, because it is so hard, because so many of the things that we're doing are not top level sustainable. They're not an ideal world. We facilitate a lot of flying and traveling, and we facilitate a lot of group gatherings and a lot of eating away from home, a lot of things that are just automatically not ideal. And maybe if the, sustainability tyrant who has all the perfect ideas would eliminate the concept of events completely. But the fact of the matter is, from a human sustainability standpoint, we love to gather. We need each other. We're a little hive. And so if we're not facilitating it, it'll happen anyway. So better to have people who have these achievable goals and have these, hopes and dreams of doing better as the ones leading the way. And I want to just inch everybody up a little bit into feeling like within events, it's something that's possible and that they are making an impact so that they can keep doing it. Because once you feel that little bit of success, it does make it easier to go on. So in a way, it's a small impact that's my great hope, but also very broad scope. I want to touch everyone with that little bit of optimism and feeling capable.
Yeah, it's that ripple effect. You mentioned the Northwest Event Show. I went, was it 2 years ago? There was a presentation from, the name escapes me right now, but it was one of the app platforms for events. So instead of printing an agenda, it's all on an app that you can access. And I thought it was really smart, just to share an example. And I'll have to link the company once I remember it in, what was it? Anyways, I'll have to link it in the notes for this live.
We can chat after and we'll see if I know.
Yeah. But we came into the breakout session and the stage was empty. And we're like, where's the speaker? There's no one here. And all of a sudden they put a video on and the person was based in Singapore and they were streaming in and presenting from, virtually, because they said the carbon emissions of my flight would have had a huge impact just for me personally. And I thought that was so smart. I mean, it was a little bummed that they weren't there in person to pick their brain and ask some questions afterwards, but I thought it was a really neat move for them.
Yeah, and it's a great example of prioritizing for your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, the carbon emissions were not outranked by the other qualities that it would have given them to be there. And, if they were more focused on something else, they might have been there and then made different choices when they were in person. It's a great representation, and have them being backed by their company to do that, because their company very well may have said, like, your human presence is worth more to us than buying the carbon offsets to send you on this around the world flight from Singapore. So yeah, I think that's also a great example of, like, we've got all this modern technology. We have solutions. We just need to have the bandwidth for creativity to think of those solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If we have questions from the audience, I always like at this point to ask. I know, Fanny, thank you for your note here. Now you're joining us live. But if you have any questions for Alycia, we're going to move into my final question. And then we do have a question that was sent in from the audience beforehand. So last question from me is, tell us, our audience with the Green Marketing Academy, those listening in, those watching the recording later, how can we best support you and your efforts and get connected and stay in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you. I most of all would love to be connected with all of you through LinkedIn. I think that's a great way to see each other's work and what's going on. The more you can help support and promote the messages that I'm putting out, which are very achievable changes and sort of the optimism, my chronic optimism that I was born with, then that would be really amazing. I do run open workshops that are group workshops digitally that you're welcome to check out and attend. My website link on my LinkedIn profile is the easiest way to get to that. And if any marketing specialists want to help me do better at building up my marketing for that, I'm in the process of my sort of second generation development. And then if you are going to events, mention it. Be sure to flag up to the people that for next year, you'd love to see X, Y, or Z thing happening. We were sort of sold a false expectation in the events industry, and I think in a lot of industries at the beginning of the sustainability movement, that there would be so much consumer pressure to do the right thing. And it turns out, thanks to Google and the onset of the internet, the consumers don't have to demand anything from us. They can just go to the people who are already doing what they want. And so relying on consumer pressure isn't a good choice for making business decisions, but a lot of people still do it. So if you as the consumers can go out there and say, this matters to me, I would have prioritized coming to your event if this had happened. I will not be coming next year unless this happens, not in a threatening way, but in an informative way. Putting that information out there does help overall. And otherwise, the planners and people who do care about those things may not have the incentives to bring up the line to the decision makers and the budget holders to say this is something that matters. So use your voice and connect with me are the two things, I think.
Awesome. I did think of the event app name. It's Give Me, GEVME. So I'll link that reference in the article follow up. But yeah, had to dig deep for it in the the knowledge bank there. But yes,
Giphy's been doing some really interesting new evolutions on their offerings as well that are very sustainability focused.
Yeah, and any event app for that matter, I'm taking away from paper printed agendas that can change right away. Sometimes right after they're printed. So
yeah, exactly. I'll have to hook you up to come to Northwest Event Show in 2025. We've gotten rental screens, we've gotten digital maps. There's a lot of non-print materials that we've been able to utilize.
I'm so glad to hear that you're involved with them.
Yeah, as an event show, the biggest aspiration that we could have is to be demonstrating the best use cases, because we are the industry, we're talking to ourselves. So we can show off and we can say, you might not have convinced your mid-level pharma company to do this yet, but look at what's possible. Get some ideas, get some energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so this question came in beforehand, and if anyone has any other questions before, or if you're watching the recording, feel free to post it in the comment section, and we'll be sure to get back to you with a response. So the question comes in from a member of the Green Marketing Academy community, Teresa. She asks, with limited budgets for my nonprofit clients who have events and fundraisers, where do you place your financial priorities when it comes to planning events, such as spending, basically from taking the least important for achieving no waste events as possible to the most impactful?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's probably one of the first questions I always get. We touched on a little bit my premise of ranking your personal interests, and in this case, your nonprofit's personal interest. If they're more focused on human welfare than animal welfare, than environmental, you can really prioritize those things as you go. And then after that, my biggest advice is to work with your vendors, because if they know in advance what your goals are, even if they're not achievable this year, they're the experts who can facilitate and help you. So if you say, as an organization, we're really focused on moving toward, better worker conditions, more local economy spending, and, reducing carbon impact because of the, disastrous natural weather that comes from climate change. How can you help me reduce road miles, bring things more locally? And then using that both to educate your end client, the nonprofit, and educate their attendees, then you're getting kind of a double whammy of, it might not be perfect, but this is what we have done. This is how we had your interests in mind. And I think, honestly, prioritizing based on what is the best impact and what is the least important impact is kind of a false exercise, because whatever you're capable of doing is the best you're going to be able to do. And you might be able to say, like, okay, we're going to ditch all of our decoration budget in favor of buying local flowers from a local farm for a florist to use. And that's awesome. And if you wanted to be that focused in on your road miles and supporting local businesses, you can totally do that. But we all know you're going to get kickback down the line for not having more decorations and not having, rather than trying to turn one knob up to 11, let's just move everything a little bit across the board would be my advice. And really honing in on what your nonprofit partners want and making them feel heard and considered will get you really far. And I think your vendors will be able to help you with the budget aspect of like, what can they realistically do so that you can work on that and make it a multi-year project, so that as time goes on, you're building on your goal.
Yeah.
What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I have an example to share, actually, a
Yes.
shout out to a former client of mine. And I actually spoke at their conference earlier this year, Zero Waste San Diego. They put on a zero waste consortium every year, or symposium rather. And one way that you can cut down on cost and waste at the same time is just this whole bring your own movement. Have in all of your email communications, on your event page, in your event reminders, to bring your own water bottle and coffee mug. I mean, that saves on so much waste right then and there. How many times have you gone to a conference and you get, even if it's a paper cup, fill it with coffee, throw it away, then you go back for more coffee, sometimes a couple times, or more water. I mean, that's just one way that I think all events and all conferences should adopt, because again, and maybe you provide that water bottle, or in this case, Zero Waste San Diego actually got donations of mugs from Goodwill that weren't selling and had those. And then all attendees were able to take that home at the end of the day. So that's one way, just right off the bat, that you can reduce so much waste and impact just in the, more of the tangible aspect. But wanted to shout them out for doing a great job with that year after year.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I'm always very sensitive to food waste. I think it's sometimes hard to pitch up the line to the people who at your organization are trying to show off and make people feel like they're having a luxury experience and want to donate because of it. Smaller portions of nicer quality food is a really great, easy way to go. It's something that your vendors can really get on board with. Your caterer probably has big ideas that they'd love to execute. And it's something this is not for the Seattle market. We are really against this, but around the world, hopefully we can move in the direction of really under ordering as well.
Yes.
If you do not RSVP, we will not have a backup plate for you, that sort of situation. It's very hard to balance the luxury experience of, giving everything to your attendees so that they feel taken care of and generous to your nonprofit. Mm-hmm. But if you do it from the perspective of communicating, and if you say, FYI, we are reducing our food size, and that, is going toward local food banks instead, or, however you need to psychologically negotiate it so that you're still communicating in the way that they care about. I think the majority of us would rather go out and have a small amount of a delicious dinner and know that a member of the community also got fed than be given a quarter of a chicken that we had no hope of finishing.
Right. Yeah. And one more example, and then I know we'll wrap it up, because literally we could talk for 2 hours about all this. Is at the 1% Summit last week, they had, for the opening event, wood-fired pizza. And a friend of mine actually did this for their wedding too. And you have the wood-fired pizza oven right there. It was like a trailer that they brought. And they're making pizzas, and they're kind of eyeballing, okay, how many people are there, what the demand is. But they were only making enough pizzas that would actually get eaten. There really wasn't leftovers afterwards. So not that everyone in nonprofits have a budget to bring in a wood-fire pizza company to your event, but just there's ways to get creative in that. And yeah, I'm also someone that feels incredibly passionate about food waste and the problems at that event. So I'll leave that there, but I know this is not the last time that we're going to be getting together and talking about this. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments afterwards, and we'll get back to you. I'll link Alycia's info, her website, and her LinkedIn profile in the comments as well. And we are back next month with what will be our final LinkedIn Spotlight series of the year, because we'll take December off for a short break. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.